online 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet radio station.
Rehearsing and nursing a part. We know every part by heart. Overture, curtain lights. This is it. We'll hit the heights. And oh, what heights we'll hit. On with the show. This is it.
Good morning, clapping.
Back off, crowd, back off. They'll be with you in a minute. Gordon Bennett, they can't hold back here.
Oh.
They're all going mad. Calm down, people, calm down.
Everyone's going crazy.
Oh.
Yay.
The amount of people in the studio, eh? How are you?
Hey. Yes, so Dave, we have a lot of people on the call today.
I know, apparently we got half of the United Nations on here, haven't we? By the looks of it.
Right. We've got a lot of people. So we have my friend Chris Desizlets, my friend Laura Fils-Aime, and my friend Steph Jester. And we have known each other for, I don't know, umpteen years. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but let me just give you a little bit of background on what we are doing here today. And we are all women who, let's just say, we're all across the country here. We're from California to Texas, and we worked together in an addiction recovery center for years and years and years. And so we are in the helping field, and we still are in the helping field. And I thought it'd be awesome to get us all together and talk about our stories and how we know each other. So Dave, we've known each other for a very long time. We know a lot about each other, and it's going to be a fun time. So I'm super excited to have each one of you go ahead and introduce yourself. And we're going to start with you, Desi.
Oh, goody. That's me. Well, my name is Chris Desizlets, but I go by Desi because when I went to the Ark with all the ladies, there were too many Chris's. So I became Desi. And I've known Chris for close to 17 years. And have worked in lots of different helping professions in that time, mostly with homeless, but some other areas. And I'm just thrilled to be here.
Thank you, Desi. And Desi's been up all night, if y'all. So this is going to be so much fun because not only is she tired, she's been watching crazy weird TV, and she's hopped up on caffeine. So
that's right.
And Laura, how about you?
Yes, hi. Desi's funny already, so this should be hilarious. So I'm Laura Fils-Aime. I am out in Texas, but I have known these gals for a long time as well. I actually started at Detox as part of my journey to get back to grad school, and ended up going to grad school to become a clinical psychologist. So I currently do that kind of work with veterans, so a lot of folks who are dealing with trauma and substance use still. So super excited to be here.
Yeah, and you also write for a blog, correct?
I do. I write for Fort Worth Mom's blog, so, one of my many roles.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later. And Steph, how are you?
Yes, I am good.
Yes, tell us a little bit about you.
So I am Steph Jester, and I worked at Detox while I was figuring out what my next step was, and then I also went back to grad school and got my master's in social work, and I still work in the substance use field, and I work with teens struggling with substance use and their families. So substance use and trauma and other chronic mental illness are kind of my thing now. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me. And Dave, so we've got 5 ladies in your company today, so we're going to be really chatty. So you might have to reel us in.
Don't worry. No, I'm going to just, I'm putting my hands behind my head and put my feet on the desk. Yeah, this is going to be quality now. I'm leaving you lot to it.
Yep, that's what's going to happen. And before I forget, I do have to do a shout out today, because today is my dear friend Ryan and Lisa Hartley's 8th wedding anniversary. So,
happy anniversary to you! Happy anniversary to you! Oh yeah, happy anniversary to Ryan and Mrs. Hartley! Happy anniversary to you! Boom boom.
Thank you, Dave. He'll appreciate that. Totally appreciate that.
You're more than welcome.
What was that?
I said you're more than welcome.
Yeah. So I appreciate you letting me do that, ladies. So we have an hour to get to share today, and what I would love to do is take a quick break, and then we're going to dive into what we're doing now, how things have shaped our lives, and really how, even though we are really across the country, how much connected we are and how important those relationships are. So let's go listen to some George Harrison, My Sweet Lord, and we'll be right back on the Heartbeat.
On the all-day special on Expat Radio, you're listening to the Heartbeat with Christine Saunders and some quality girls that she's got with her today, working in some fantastic situations, doing an awful lot of good for them as well. Right, we're going back live to the girls now. Oh, I need to lie down, get the brew on. Just giving them a call back now.
Welcome back to the Heartbeat, everyone. This is an exciting show for us today. We have 4 amazing women, I'm including myself in there, because we've all worked together in the helping field and addiction field for years. And so here's what I'd love to do with each one of you is, if each one of you could, we can just have a dialogue. I don't have to do a question answer. I know there's a lot of people on this show today, and I don't think I've had this many people. So thank you, ladies, for bearing with me. And so here's what I want to do. I want to know what the experience working in detox has, taught you, and how did that experience help shape who you are today? And Laura, why don't we start with you, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure, no problem. Well, it's sort of funny because, I have been a psychologist now for about 6 years and trained before that. And I tell people all the time that I still haven't encountered anything as intense as I did in detox. So in all this time, it's funny that I was, doing in some cases, the hardest work before I knew anything.
Right.
But it really has shaped whether or not I wanted to continue in this field. But working with the addiction population has just been incredible. I think because you notice that it just cuts across every category. Like, addiction just doesn't care about your gender, your race, how much money you have. It's just incredible. So I think that it's really just shaped how much I want to be a part of the helping process for people. And clearly still doing that. So
yeah, that is amazing. And, I always kind of joke around with some of my current friends. Like, we always used to say, we're all going to heaven because we worked in detox.
Exactly.
I have been going there anyway, but I think that there were so many things, like I can't even pinpoint some of the things that like stick out in my mind because there's so many. So I appreciate you sharing that. And Desi, how about you?
Yes, I think it was a major shift in my life walking in that door into detox and asking to be a volunteer, and then eventually being hired and working there for 6 years. I don't think anything has been such a profound experience in my life as that. I came into this work through my own addiction and just celebrated 20 years of sobriety. So
that's awesome.
I know, 20 years, 2 double X's, and I can't even drink it. But it's followed me everywhere. I mean, I've worked in a homeless shelter with addicted individuals, and I've worked in a treatment center, and I was actually a chef in a treatment center using my other skills. So I've been in, about, and around service work for a very long time. And for me, detox was the impetus and the start. So profoundly grateful.
Wow. That's awesome. And congratulations on your 20 years. That's beautiful. I guess I didn't realize that. So that's really awesome.
Well, you're the one that asked me when I walked in the detox door, do you have experience? And I said, well, I'm in recovery. And you said, well, that'll work.
First-hand experience.
That's a lot of experience. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's funny. I do remember you coming in for the first time, and maybe we can talk about the first time we all stepped foot into that center. But I do remember you walking in, and we were all gathered around the computer, and that's funny that it's how archaic that computer probably is nowadays if you think about it, watching a dog dancing video, and how times have not changed. 1 ounce of dog dancing video later, we are still on the same kick. That is so funny. Oh my gosh.
That's right.
And Steph, what about you?
Yeah, so it's funny, detox was also the start of my journey. So I had just moved to Boulder and had been interested in substance use work in college, and literally drove past the Addiction Recovery Center, as it was called at the time, and walked in and asked, how can I volunteer? And that's how I started at Detox, volunteering, and then got hired on. And, I was thinking about what Laura said about nothing quite being like detox. And it's true. I mean, I work with teens who are struggling in some really big ways. And so I've definitely dealt with differently scary things, or just professionally more challenging as far as mental health goes, or immediate crises. But nothing has quite matched the challenges that I experience in detox as well, of just a completely different side. And I feel like that comes with me a lot when we talk about, with kids and motivational interviewing, or with harm reduction and their futures. My experiences at detox are never too far from my mind.
Right. I think it's like, it's kind of like that whole saying, like, once you've done it once, then you've already done it and you don't have to experience it again. It's like that practice makes, progress. And so I think we've all been to that place where, that's like, to the normal person, they'd be shocked, like, oh my gosh, that's such a big deal. And to all of us, we're like, meh.
Exactly.
It's nothing big. It really isn't anything that big of a deal. So
yeah. It's like stress inoculation, I think. Like, I don't think I've ever called the police as often as I did in detox,
or my word,
or the emergency room.
And it's funny, kind of looking back, I don't think we really had any security either. So we were
it.
In the middle of the night, we were it. And, it's pretty amazing to look back, because you take on such great responsibility before you even really understand the responsibility that you have.
Right.
And then the more you get into it and the more you learn people's stories, it's just, it's a heavy responsibility, but it's so rewarding too. I mean, we just had so many clients that we just developed these relationships with, where you feel like you are their family, their little family away from their family.
Yeah.
That's right.
I agree. So let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll keep going on our conversation. And I want to talk about, like I said, like maybe the first time we walked into our detox, and then just really, just keep diving into those things we just talked about, the heavy relationships, the responsibility, the family, and what role and what role we played, and how that helped shape us even further. So our next song is Paul Simon's Father and Daughter, and we'll be right back on the HeartBeat. Oh, I love that.
You're listening to Expat Radio, beaming out across France and around the world.
Welcome back to the HeartBeat, everyone. with my super special guest today. We've got my friend Laura Fils-Aime, Chris Desizlets, and Steph Jester. So let me just tell you guys, when I'm reading these names, when we all worked together, we all had different names except for Desi. And so now I'm like, Steph was not Steph Jester. So I have a hard time. I had to write it down and make sure that I got the names right.
So true.
Everyone's lives have changed in such an amazing way. And so I wanted to talk about, that at some point today, and maybe now is a good time, about like, what have we been up to since then? And we kind of touched a little bit on that. And maybe we can talk about, I was just thinking and reflecting a little bit on the last half an hour. It's already been a half an hour since we've been here together. And
Wow.
I know, time flies. So here's my question to each of you. And each one of you has sort of chosen a demographic for your work in addiction. And they're all very different. But they all sort of touch each other like we talked about. So, Laura, why veterans?
It actually does stem a little bit from my detox experience, but another piece of it is that I have a lot of veterans in my family. So my dad served in Vietnam and was injured over there, and also just running into a number of veterans at detox. I remember coordinating getting them into treatment at the VA and thinking, wow, these folks are, in their darkest hour, they have a place to go, whereas most of our patients really didn't in terms of rehab options. So it kind of just led me in that direction. I feel like there's so many of my peeps over at the VA, just, veterans who have experienced trauma, and a lot of it is combat trauma, but a lot of it is just childhood trauma that kind of led them to the military as an escape. So I don't know. I just feel like I have a little heart for them because I just see how much they have sacrificed in terms of their own lives. And I work at the VA now, and it gets a bad rap, but it's funny. I don't have that experience of it. I just feel like it's some of the best mental health care that is available anywhere.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That makes complete sense why you would choose that path. And I appreciate you sharing that. And it's like this closeness to your heart sometimes that you're like, I don't know exactly why, but you know why. And Desi, what about you with really, the homeless population has always been sort of something that you've been driven to help.
Right. And the interesting thing is that when I walked into detox to get a volunteer job, it was to start getting some hours for my counseling, my addiction counseling credential. And, I was the delicate flower in the group. And this delicate flower, you guys are laughing, but hardly. Yeah, well, that's because I got a mouth. I learned to swear correctly at detox. I got to have some power and tell the old farts where to go and what to do, and so I have a heart for them also. And I think an interesting fact is I've done a lot of work in homeless shelters and at the detox, and when I left a job at a treatment center, I went to a homeless shelter to work, and the clients that I had at the homeless shelter were my detox clients 7 years later. So I got to reconnect with them and help them find places to live, and then drag them all over town, making their appointments and getting them housing. So it was delightful to get that connection.
Yeah, I can see that. And I know, there's a lot of people there's a push across the country for the last probably decade to do a housing first model. And Desi was very, instrumental in getting that in our community, where you don't necessarily have to have 100% sobriety, and you should be working on your mental illness. And if that's not happening, that's okay. You can still have housing if you choose. And so that's a big piece of the work that you did in the community before you moved to Florida than to California. So I appreciate that, because I think it's been, the program is still going very, very strong. So I see it in the work that I do every day. So, kudos to you, because I know that you were
thank you.
instrumental in getting that off the ground. And Steph, teens, like, that doesn't surprise me either, knowing you, but talk a little bit about, how come you're drawn to the teen population to work with?
Yeah, well, working at Detox really, it made me really passionate of wanting to hit addiction earlier. I just remember that resonating of wanting to help people be able to prevent this from being a part of their life, or at least giving them some tools in order to have something to come use with all their life experiences that they've had. And so, that led me down my path.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I remember you sort of looking through, because we had a teen program within our addiction recovery center, and you were very much on to that. So, like, that's why it didn't surprise me at all. Yeah. And I when I think back to Detox, I enjoyed working with the adults and the homeless population very much. I feel like that opened my eyes, and gave me, such incredible experiences that, like Laura said, things don't faze me or scare me. But then I also think of the college population that we got of working in a college town, and just the very different stages that people were at. But I found it very interesting, and such an interesting place to create change, or to talk about, okay, so if we're using, how do we do that in a way that how do we reduce the harm, and how do we find other ways to cope with whatever it is that drugs are helping with. Yeah. Yep. That's absolutely a perfect place to do that. And I think that, in across the country and probably across the globe, the funding for, mental illness and substance use treatment is dwindled over the last, decade since we all worked together.
Yeah.
Like, I think about how we can, come together and get the best bang for our buck at an opportunity. And you're right, Steph, like, let's hit them young. And people are starting, like, I think about some of the people that we saw, 15-ish, and now you hear, it's very young, like 11, 12. And so it's that point where you can just wedge your way in and hopefully get some sense into our society about that. So I really appreciate you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think the families too, like, how many of our adult clients had severed relationships with their siblings, with their parents, where they had challenges in their relationship and then they just ruptured and never repaired. And so just the opportunity to give some education to parents and help them, like, work on the type of relationship they want to have with their kid, and kind of focus on bigger picture items of, yes, let's keep our kids safe. Let's get psychoeducation about substances. And how do I reinforce my kids' behavior, or try to change their behavior in a way that is going to maintain my relationship with them, and without becoming enabling, but still be supportive and let my kid know that they have worth and value to me, and that I've got their back, even if I'm setting hard limits.
Right. Yeah, that's a perfect thing to say, and it brings back the comment that Laura said earlier about we kind of become sort of their family away from their family, and that's a really good point. And thinking about what you just said and what Laura said earlier, is we did become a family. Like, we went through loss, we went through heartache, we went through all those things that family members would go through with people, and some of them are still profound in my heart, and I'm sure they are for all of you as well.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know, sort of branching off what Steph just said about family, like, thinking about what kinds of things we offered to people besides, the detox and, all that withdrawal stuff, and getting them set up for what we wanted to see as success and what they wanted to see as success, and becoming that family member. What kind of stories kind of stick out for you guys? Anybody can just jump in.
I'm really resonating with what Steph said. I think we really did become the family in the sense of really being very supportive while also not enabling and setting hard limits. So, I just remember this story with Desi. In the middle of the day, we got a report that one of our patients or a patient was passed out on the grass, like on the corner of the complex.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lord.
Do you remember that, Sophie?
That would be art.
Yeah. And we, went out and found this guy. He's, just one of our frequent flyers who we just had such a dear heart for. But I just remember, the way that we approached him, and I think the way we approached our patients or our clients in general was just like, all right, buddy, come on. And he wasn't moving very fast. I remember Desi threatening to use her black belt in karate. Yes. her imagined black belt if he didn't speed it up because we had to go. But I mean, I think that's the thing. I think if you don't have a sense of humor, it's really hard to work with people in an effective way because that's such a piece of showing care even through really hard situations where you are setting limits, but you need that balance.
Yeah, I agree. Oh my gosh, I'm sure we all have thousands of stories to tell. But one of the things that, I wanted to just sort of, not because I want to talk there, but I want to talk about the loss of, I don't know how many clients over the 15 plus years since I was working there, and then more so when you guys were there, like over time, the number of loss situations that we all had to experience, I think probably helped shape some of our lives and how we view, success and sobriety and, those sorts of things. Does that make sense? Am I just rambling? Because, that's what I like to do sometimes. But I just think about when I left there, I was seeking something final. In addictions, it's rarely ever final. And so I wanted an end to something, if that makes sense. And I got that doing something else, something other than, whatever. Does that make sense to y'all?
Absolutely. I can share my recent experience with Betsy, and you all knew her, and she's no longer alive, but she gave me permission to say her name and tell her story forever. Mm-hmm. She came through the ARC gravely ill, and managed to, we all managed to get our current boss to be able to keep her there for 5 months while she recuperated. And she embraced AA. She was a shining star in the housing program, and she and I kept in touch for years and years. And I got to see her. She died of liver cancer, but she died sober at 11 years sober. Yeah. So I got to see her before she died, and then I got to speak at her funeral. So that is part of the family that it's just significant. Relationships become significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Desi. And yes, I do remember Betsy, and so amazing. And Steph, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of two different individuals. One who we helped for repeatedly to get into treatment at the VA. And who, that was kind of the story of, I'm trying to get to Cheyenne, just trying to get to Cheyenne.
He actually sent me letters back from Cheyenne when we got there. Rambling.
Oh, goodness. But yeah, I'm remembering that individual, and just really we were, like you said, Laura, we were his support, we were his family. And, Desi, like with Betsy, we were the ones cheering these people on. Right. And holding them to a line, and, this is what we can do, and here's what I can't do. And really I just think of how that grew me as an individual, and then to the other end of the spectrum. I remember the first time meeting a client, who's like singing AC/DC and Metallica and whatever, and is like, "Do you worship Satan?" And I'm this young 20-year-old like, no. As I'm doing his intake, but over the years, even that client, like I'd see him be like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? Like, what metal are we gonna sing tonight?" And he had dreams of sobriety too, and had dreams for his life. And I think of how when you move in close to people and you're not put off by how they present, with all these people we've talked about, how we really got to know their heart and got to know the human behind that's struggling with the substance use.
Right.
Totally.
I remember, I know that we are getting close on the next break, but I remember one of the first things I did as an intern at the young age of 21 was we used to have a physical enhancement program, which I don't think we had at all when y'all were there, but we would walk to the rec center and back, and we also had an office across the street, and we did do harm reduction where we provided, condoms and those sorts of things, and public health still does that. And I remember one of, this is kind of a hazing that they did, which was, thinking about it now, it's like, man, that sucked. But anyway, they would send me with this box and say, hey, would you stop by and pick up, some supplies? And I'm fine. That's great. Like, I'm walking up and down Broadway, which for people that don't know, it's like one of the busiest thoroughfares in Boulder, Colorado. And I've got this box and people keep looking at me and honking at me. And I was like, why are people honking at me? Well, on the side of this box is a giant red label that says condoms. And I was like, you jerks, but it really did shape me into if I can walk up and down Broadway with a box that says condoms on it, I can pretty much do anything. And that's just a minor thing that detox has taught me. So that's like, oh my gosh. I wish I had a picture, because I'm sure the look on my face is like, what the heck? I'm like this innocent little thing. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
Not be shamed. Yes.
Right. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. We're going to listen to Enrique Iglesias Balamos, and we'll be right back on the Heartbeat. Welcome back to the Heartbeat, everyone. It's me, Christine Saunders, and my three special guests, Laura, Desi, and Steph. And we've just been talking about our experience in working in a detox center here and how it has shaped our lives for today. And so we have maybe 10 minutes left, and I really want to just sort of talk a little bit about how people can follow you, how people can connect with you if they have questions, or if they just want to bounce ideas off of you. So, Laura, how can people get a hold of you?
That's an excellent question.
Is it social media? Social media is usually the way that I have people connect. So
probably just on social media, on Facebook. Otherwise, I'm not on all the platforms. I do write for Fort Worth Moms blog, so you can also follow me on there. That's kind of my other passion, is connecting moms with mental health information and that kind of deal. So that's another place.
That's awesome. How did you get started doing that?
Well, I moved to a new area while I was pregnant, and I had no friends there. So I was desperately looking on maternity leave for a way to connect with other moms, that I ran across the blog at the same time they were looking for contributors. So I've actually been doing that my entire parenthood journey for the most part. So it's just been a really cool way of connecting with moms, but also bringing in the mental health and substance abuse piece too.
That's brilliant. That's so cool. And Desi, what about you? How do people get to ask you questions and connect with you?
Oh, give me a call.
But not at 4 a.m.
No. I'm planning to sleep till noon. I'm on Facebook under Chris Desizlets, and Instagram under @Desizlets.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely connect with Desi. And Steph, what about you?
Yeah, for me, the best way would probably be Facebook Messenger. I don't go on Facebook a ton, but I do use Messenger. So just Steph Jester on Messenger. You can find me there.
Awesome. It's exciting because like normally like when I have people on like they're doing like a coaching program, like they have their own coaching business or their own, therapy business, and you all are working in the field and doing other things. So I think it would be awesome if people connected with you just to bounce ideas off each other, have questions, or maybe need some resources or just some ideas from your brilliant brains. That would be awesome if people could connect with you. And the one caveat I do have for listeners is if you do connect, tell them where you heard them, because I've got people connecting with me and I don't know who they are, and so sometimes it's like I don't know who you are, but it's really helpful to find out later, like, oh, I heard you on Expat Radio. So make sure that you share that with our ladies. And so here's my last question, and I think it's a profound one, because I think for every step into the detox is where we've gotten today. So could each one of you share a tiny short blurb about the first time you walked into the detox? Desi, you kind of shared yours, so we'll just start with yours, see if you want to add anything. The first time you walked in, what was your thought when you left?
These people are crazy. I mean, there was a bearded man, and then there was Christine Saunders, like I've never seen her before, and our friend Fitzy, and
Yes.
drunken clients everywhere, and it just was nothing I'd ever seen, and I just thought, I'm going to be bold and brave and take a chance, and it just turned out to be a profound experience.
Yeah. Steph, what about you?
I mean, the first time doesn't stick out in my head, but I can just remember this. I can remember being new and just similarly to Desi, of just kind of like my eyes being in shock and awe of the staff and kind of their ease and their ability to laugh things off or hold firm boundaries, as well as kind of what was going on with all the clients and their struggles. And I can remember leaving and just knowing, like, yep, this is my niche.
Wow, that's awesome. Oh my gosh. And Laura, what about you?
I'm similar to Steph in that the first time doesn't stick out. But the one of the really early times that does stick out, I was working on the day shift, and there were just, a collection of folks, mostly homeless, who were hanging out in the day room. And I was trying my best to appear invisible because I just had no clue what I was doing. And my supervisor at the time, Smitty, said, well, why don't you go talk to them? I was like, about what? And he's like, they're people, just go talk to them. And it really was a growth experience. So, they were growing in sobriety, but I think, all of us started as volunteers or interns. So we really wanted to be there. We started unpaid. And it was just like a parallel growth experience where it was like, I'm really scared about this too. But the more that, you just kind of force yourself over that cliff, it was just an amazing growth experience for me too.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And, that's interesting that each one of you has sort of that, yes, this is what I want to do, because the first night, and I also worked with Smitty, the first night that I walked in, it was a swing shift on a Saturday night. And I walked in and was met with this overwhelming scent that I've never smelled before. We haven't even
we know it.
This smell that's not a pleasant smell, and I stuck it out for the 8 hours. And I remember getting in my car, and I was staying with my folks because I was living between Denver and Greeley going to school, and I remember getting in my car just sobbing and telling myself I am never going back there again. That was the awful experience ever in my life. I don't know what I was thinking. I have zero clue. I have zero idea that this is what it was going to be like. And I got up the next day and I went back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like there was a calling there for me, and I didn't know that night. But then after that, it was like, okay, this is it. Like a couple of days in, then I was like, okay, I can do this. And it was the ease, like you were talking, like it's the ease of watching someone who is so present in the moment with people who are not present themselves.
Yeah.
And that was it. I was like, oh, this is definitely it. So it's so cool that you guys have that experience. And then mine was a little bit later. Oh my gosh!
I can remember that smell though.
Oh yeah, never leaves you.
It doesn't.
Yeah. I remember going home going, why does it still smell? Why does my shirt smell? I don't understand. And I know the next morning my mom's like, where did you go all night? Like, what do you mean, where did I go all
I was working.
I was working, right? Oh my gosh. Yep, stale booze and
Yes.
It wasn't a great experience with the smell, but now we are all immune to everything on earth, and we're going to have...
It's true. It's true.
Oh my God. Well, I can't thank you all enough for joining me this morning. Desi, thank you for staying up all night and being so perky and caffeinated, and it's awesome. And
I'm fading fast.
I can imagine. And Laura and Steph, thank you so much for getting up early with me. This show has been, this is the third time we've attempted this show, so it finally went off, and I'm super excited that we did it. And I, one of the first time that we didn't go on, the internet kind of gave us some problems over there in France, Dave, and that was the topic. Like, France, get your internet going. We're coming on. So we're here today. So Dave, any last questions for our ladies before we roll?
I think what we'll do is we'll organise a bus tour for you all, and
okay,
we'll get you over here. Then you'll see how bad France is. Well, France, seriously, you're lucky you got running water and gas over here. It's that far. It's about 30 years behind France compared to America. It's ridiculous. They've only just found out that literally there was a news flash the other day on the telly, and it was because the wheel had been invented. That's how far back they are over here.
So, Dave, can you say like two little blurbs about what's going on with Violet, because that kind of got brought up last week, and I just want to make sure that we can keep the ball rolling with what's going on with Violet. Yeah,
well, she's 4 years old. She's got cerebral palsy, bless her, and her grandfather's walking from Parthenay, which is here in France, about half an hour from where I live, or 45 minutes away, back to the UK, and it's about it's 1 million yards. But it's something like 700 and something kilometres that he's going to walk to raise funds for the family to be able to afford to keep the treatment going and everything. So we've got Charles Hanson from Bargain Hunt off the TV in the UK. He's coming over to do the auction with me. We'll be there, causing chaos and doing whatever's going on. And then I know there's a lot of people involved that's behind the scenes involved, doing teas and coffees and food and cakes and God knows what else. And it's going to be an unbelievable afternoon, and hopefully it'll go on into the evening as well. So if you're in the Parthenay area in the north, well, it's on the never eat anyway. It's the south. It's on the west coast of France, basically. I was trying to visualize it.
Drinking this morning.
Yeah, well, I'm crap at geography. I'm crap at geography. The amount of times I've gone into people's houses at night and not realised it's my house, and got in the wrong bed and not realised it was my other half.
So, Dave, is there any way that people can donate money, like from here, or do they have to be there in person?
They have to. Well, they can go on the website, on the Violet website, but we're going to put the information of that on our website. So
awesome.
Anyone that wants to go on there to donate, then obviously they're more than welcome.
Very cool. Thank you, Dave. I definitely, once you get that link, I want to share it on all of my social media as well. So that would be very, very cool. So we are up. Our time is up today, ladies and gentlemen. And so we have one final song by George Michael, amazing. And I can't thank you all enough for joining me. And we'll see you all next week on The HeartBeat.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, girls, for being on today. You've been brilliant.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye.